everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the LifeSci NYC Career Panel on Women Shaping the Future of Life Sciences, hosted by the LifeSci NYC Internship Program. So my name is Zaruhi Karapetyan. I am the Career Development Manager for this program, and I'll be moderating today's discussion. We want to also get to know who are our audience today. So feel free to introduce yourself in our Zoom chat. You can provide your name, your school, and your major. Meanwhile, to give you an overview, we will start with a quick presentation of the LifeSci NYC career resources, followed by introductions to today's panelists. Our wonderful panelists will discuss their career paths and offer advice for students on how to excel in their in this fascinating life sciences field. And I want to mention that the event will conclude with an opportunity for Q&A. So make sure to have your notes and prepare your questions, and feel free to write your questions in our chat. This session will be recorded, and the video link we will share with you along with these slides and program resources. So that said, I want to talk about some resources that the LifeSci NYC Internship Program provides to students who are working on their first career steps. Here you see the series of career profiles that offer an overview of career options in the life sciences industry. So each profile includes details about educational requirements, job responsibilities, desired skills and qualifications, as well as insights from professionals who are currently working in these roles. You can see here 14 career profiles ranging from research and development to regulatory and HR roles in life sciences. This slide is more like an example how our career profile can look like, and this one is specifically in business management and operations strategy roles. So you can see who is hiring. You can see also what kind of background you need to have to get a role in this field. And also you can see what kind of skills you need to have in order to be prepared to get an internship or entry-level position. We also want to share this recent resource that we have launched, and it calls the Life Sciences Career Resources Library. And we are happy to do it today, to share it, because the library is an online hub designed to support students and also early career professionals who are navigating careers in the life sciences. It brings together curated resources for career exploration, skills building, job searching, and professional development. So we really hope you will use this resource, and this will be really useful for your career success. On the screen, you see some a screenshot of how this library looks like, and just some resources. We have over 40 resources right now. And now I'm really happy to share our panelists. So in celebration of Women's History Month, we have invited 3 amazing women professionals that are shaping the future of the life sciences. So please welcome Kat Donaldson, Head of Corporate Development and Operations at Nilo Therapeutics. Also, please welcome Kristel Velez, Senior Associate Scientist at Regeneron, and also happens to be our program alumni. And also, please welcome Roma Vishwanath-Deutsch, founder and CEO at Pinkmatter. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, and I would like to ask our panelists to introduce themselves, to briefly introduce their background and what kind of role they are what they are in now.
Who would you like to go first? Shall I go
Uh,
first?
who wants to go first? Do you want, Kat?
I can go,
Yeah.
sure. Um, Hi everyone, I'm Kat Donaldson. So my background, I'm a scientist by training. I studied biochemistry as an undergrad and then went on to grad school, specializing in biochemistry for PhD. Had a short stint after that, staying in the lab and doing research, but quickly kind of pivoted out of the lab. Moved to Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory, so staying in an academic environment, but more on the kind of administrative side. I kind of was there for a few years, grew up to chief development officer there, so working closely with scientists, building research programs, bringing in resourcing to execute on them. From there, I jumped over a bit more into industry. So I joined Alexandria Real Estate and Venture Investments, where I uh, headed up New York's startup incubator for Alexandria. So working very closely with early stage biotech companies and doing investments in those kinds of companies too. Um, and kind of caught the bug and wanted to jump into a startup for myself. So did that a few years ago with Nilo Therapeutics, and have had a lot of fun in the last few years trying to build that team and company to where we are today.
Thank you so much. Sounds fascinating.
I'll go next.
Mhm.
I'm Kristel Velez. I am working currently at Regeneron as a scientist in the Protein Expression Sciences department, under the B cell isolation group, where we isolate B cells, antigen specific B cells for the antibody discovery pipeline. And this was my first job right out of graduating from my undergrad. I started off at RPI, which is Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, as a biomedical engineering major, and then transferred over to City College, where I continued the same major and graduated for my bachelor's, and then straight went into this role. So I've been here for almost 6 years in the same role. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing your background. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. I'm Roma. I'm the founder of Pinkmatter. We're building a platform for evidence-informed solutions for PMS and PMDD, premenstrual disorders that women experience. Um, my background, my bachelor's degree is in pharmacy. So think organic chemistry, drug development. And then I got my master's from NYU Tandon School of Engineering in biotechnology and entrepreneurship. Um, and they're really over-indexed on genetic engineering as like my thesis. And of course, minor was in entrepreneurship. Um, while I was doing my master's at NYU in my first year, I joined LifeSci NYC as an intern, joined a biotech startup in Brooklyn in genetic engineering, and had an amazing time. My internship kind of got extended into my next semester, which is really great. And right after that, and after graduating from my master's, did a bit of research at Weill Cornell in Manhattan. And following which, I got a job at Helena, a biotech startup, as a scientist. I was employee number one at Helena, and had a series of promotions, worked there for 5 years, and then early last year started Pinkmatter. Um, yeah, that's pretty much my journey so far.
Thank you so much, Roma. As you see, all our three panelists are really amazing and have different career paths. And it's really interesting to learn from all three of you. So one more time, thank you for joining and agreeing to share your experience. We prepared some questions to you. So first question I want to ask to Kat. Having worked in research and industry, such as Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory and Nilo Therapeutics, what key lessons have you learned about building a successful career in life sciences, and how can early career professionals apply them?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this question kind of deeply, and I think I have a couple of different like kind of angles on the answer. I think one is I see a lot of early career scientists, especially kind of really focusing on like what you're doing, right? Like what do I want to do in my next role? And I'd encourage everyone to kind of think more carefully about like where you're doing it and who you're doing it with. Um, I give a lot of credit in my own personal journey to kind of who I've had the chance to work next to or work under, who I've had the chance to learn from when I've been in organizations that have kind of given me the opportunity to kind of flex and stretch and find my own path, you know? And I think that's where you can really kind of find yourself. I think it's actually much less important to say, okay, this is the one like particular little thing that I'm like, obviously you want to follow your passion, right? But the one little thing that I really want to do, because you could end up doing that thing in an organization where you kind of plateau very quickly and there isn't much room for growth and there isn't a lot of room to learn. So I always encourage people to kind of seek out opportunities where you'll be able to grow. As long as you're challenging yourself, learning new things, no experience is not great. Um, and then I also, another answer I'd give to that is just the value of good old-fashioned networking, getting to know people. Again, like when I look back over my career, like actually, when I thought about it, every single opportunity I've ever had has been through network. It's never been kind of you see a job posted and you apply. It's always you get to know someone, they get to know you, they get to know you as an individual, as a person, how you are, they trust you. And then when opportunities pop up, you're kind of, you know, first in mind, or you have a nice introduction, warm introduction there. So I always say like even if you don't see the kind of the never pass on an intro. Never pass on like, let's meet for coffee, just get to know each other. Because you never know where it could lead. Like even if you don't see it like in the near term, it'll always come back somehow to benefit you. So those are my couple of pieces of advice.
Thank you so much, Kat, for sharing your experience. And I really liked what you said about challenging yourself, because sometimes we are really afraid of getting out of our comfort zone, right? And getting there, meeting people and creating our network. But as you mentioned, it's really important to start doing that and start as early as you can to build your network. Thank you. Next question, I want to ask Kristel. As someone who has advanced in highly competitive scientific environments, how did you make your work visible and advocate for yourself early on?
Yeah, so I think it's a little specific for me, like in an industry setting, and kind of in a structured environment with hierarchy of different levels and whatnot. But I think this still holds true in any setting that you're in, because you're always going to be like in this hierarchy. Whether you're, up top or kind of funneling down to the bottom. Um, Something that worked for me is to speak to your supervisors, your managers, or anyone kind of above your position, like speak honestly to them and bring up how do they see you uh, being visible and kind of especially with if you have a manager or a supervisor, like tell them, ask them, how do you think, I can be more I can be maintained visible and what can I work on and what can I do to keep growing? Um, and that takes a while because you do have to like build this relationship with them in order to feel comfortable enough to say that. And another thing is then also learning how to feel comfortable speaking up about the things that you have questions on, whether that is scientifically or in like a career pathway, learning how to ask questions and not feel like your questions aren't valuable. And it takes a while, especially I think as a woman, it's like a thing that we're kind of scared to sound like we don't know or like we don't understand things, but you kind of have to get comfortable with like, okay, I can ask questions and that increases your visibility because people acknowledge that you are trying to learn and that you're kind of trying to understand things. Another thing kind of in akin with what Kat was saying, like with networking, it's I would say to be friendly and professional with everyone, despite of where they are in your company or in your space, because you never know how those people can bring you new opportunities or kind of bring you like a new project that you can work on and that can help you stay visible and like be kind of seen by other people that maybe you wouldn't have if you weren't in communication with those other individuals. So, yeah, and then just kind of keeping open to opportunities, whether it's in your field and what you're working on, or even opportunities like this, like panels, mentorship, employee resource groups, ERGs, we call them, kind of try to keep opportunities and like stay open to doing them.
Thanks, Kristel. Really amazing advices. And I really liked what you mentioned about speak honestly, because sometimes we are afraid to do that, but it's good to be honest with specifically your manager. And yes, really good advice. Thank you. Next question to Roma. Women's health has traditionally been underfunded. As a founder, raising capital and building scientific credibility, what are the most significant hurdles you've encountered in the funding ecosystem?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I feel like as a founder, I get asked that question a lot. I ask myself that question too. Like, how do I overcome this? But I just want to mention how, like, in today's economy, funding is just in general extremely selective and is really, as a baseline driven by innovation. If you have an innovative product, if there is a need for this product, you could think that you would get funded, but that's like the baseline today. And when it comes to women's health, specifically, women's health could be really tricky in that we currently have limited women's health research, right? And to do new research, it requires a lot of, it's really expensive. It requires a lot of funding. And, I can speak to it as a bootstrap founder that, I'm not able to, create these clinical trials. I'm not able to make this research myself, right? Um, um, and then the thing that makes it really complex is also that even if you did have the resources, women's health is really, you need to navigate women's health through a very different lens. Women undergo 4 seasons, as I like to call it, in a month. And there's that added layer of complexity that research needs to, get ahead of. And so it's not very straightforward. There needs to be a lot of, investment done in the research. People need to be knowledgeable. There are so many women's health concerns, disorders, diseases that need to be studied. We're extremely underfunded. And, VCs are they're afraid to invest in something so complex and something that they don't know will give them a return. Um, but here's the catch, right? If you were to make that research possible, the the reward could be like huge. I mean, imagine the number of women who experience PMS, like 1 in 3. Imagine the number of women who have endometriosis, 1 in 10. Like, these are just like a few concerns that I'm sharing, but women represent like 51% of the population. Back in the day, they would say women's health is niche. It's not. We're half the population, more than. And so I think that mindset is changing. Women's health is really hot right now. There's a lot of talk, maybe not as much investment as I'd like to see, but hey, like we're getting there. I'm hopeful. Um, so I'm like blanking on like what else you asked me, but I think it's definitely looking hopeful, but right now the environment is very selective.
Thank you, Roma. This is really important to also mention the challenges in this field, right? We have one message here from Veronica saying that in addition to what you said, women weren't in clinical trials till 1990s, so even the historical data are biased. That is another layer of complexity. So I think
Yeah, and sorry to interrupt you, but a lot of research that was done on men sometimes gets translated into women's health too. And it's not always as straightforward as it is for men's health. So a lot of conditions and disorders need to be specifically studied in women, like this person mentioned here. And you need women for these studies. You can't run them on men.
exactly. Thank you so much, Roma. I want to get back to Kat. Another question, because you have some different experiences. From your time heading Alexandria Lunch Lab, what's one thing that would be especially helpful for students to know in advance about working at a startup in or incubator?
Yeah, it's chaos. Yeah, a startup environment is totally different too, and I see Roma smiling, so I'm sure that you are familiar. Right, like I think any other environment, a large company, when you're in school, when you're doing academic research, even, it's pretty structured. You kind of know what you're doing when you come in at the beginning of the day. You know what you're doing for the next week, for the next quarter, for the next year. You have a plan. And yeah, sometimes things change, but you have a bit of buffer, you have some heads up. Startup is not like that at all. Like sometimes you have your plans, but you still have to plan. So you have your plans laid up for the next year. It changes on a weekly basis and it can change quite significantly. So kind of getting comfortable, either getting comfortable or, some people just, it's like a fish to water, but being comfortable with kind of taking each day as it comes, rolling with the punches, being super adaptable. Um, and then also, in this high degree of ambiguity environment, just really trusting your instincts, like being confident in your own knowledge and um, that no one has complete information, but someone has to make a call, someone has to make a judgment, and just learning to trust that. And honestly, like even to this day, it's something I myself still struggle with. I think anyone who's human always will, right? And sometimes you just have to remind yourself, like, no, like I am a smart person who knows the field and the industry. If this is the conclusion I come to, it's as good a conclusion as anyone could, and just go with it. So that's my advice.
Thank you. What I took from you is like it's really you need to be brave to go into startup, right? To be brave and ready for the chaos, as you mentioned. Thank you, Kristel. Kat, sorry. I want to ask my next question to Kristel. You worked as an intern at the New York Stem Cell Foundation and now working at Regeneron. How would you compare working for a nonprofit with a large corporation?
Yeah, so I think it is different. I want to kind of preface with New York Stem Cell Foundation. Now it's different. I mean, when I interned, it was a while ago, but I think they're still a very well-funded like organization, or they were at the time when I interned. So I think even compared to other places, like it was a little more advanced, I would call it, than other small like startups or smaller organizations that aren't like a bigger company like Regeneron. But even then, it is a different vibe, I would call it, just because like at NICEF, I felt like even as an intern, like everyone kind of knew who you were because it's a smaller organization. You basically can walk up to like where the CEO's like office was and like walk by it and like see the CEO sitting in there because it was kind of like a smaller organization. So it was just easier. I remember even as interns, we had like a meeting with the CEO and it was like a little like room and we like 20 of us and so it was definitely like somewhere where you could kind of like see everyone and you kind of knew everyone, what everyone was up to and doing. At Regeneron or larger companies, it really is different because I literally can like be in the same building as somebody else and completely be doing different things and I have no idea what they're doing. Even though we're kind of like a big part of everything is the same goal, but it's very different. And so, and also, I guess, like with how resources are allocated, that's also very different. And I mean, I also worked in academia a bit, so it's very different in like even doing your lab experiments because anyone who has worked in academia knows that you're trying to make sure that you're not running out of your reagent and that you have everything and that you're not like making things cost more money than they need to be. Whereas like where you're at a larger company that has, you know, a yeah, a good source of income, you don't really have to worry about a lot of those things. You kind of just, oh, you need that, order it, just get that. And it's that's very different. So it was a easier transition in that point. But that being said, everything is more streamlined and high throughput, and everything needs to go like really quickly, as opposed to I think NICEF was more you could kind of explore more of your research ideas and kind of really drill into one idea and keep at it. Whether here it's like if the idea is not really working quickly, you kind of have to pivot and go to the next thing and just kind of keep moving because it's like faster paced environment. So there's kind of like, you know, pros and cons.
Sounds really interesting. What do you think? Which one is like more creative?
I mean, I guess I couldn't say like which one is more creative. It depends, I think also the work that you're doing. But I would kind of incline more to like the smaller, like at NICEF, I feel like people were kind of more inclined to come up with new ideas and be able to be heard because it was a small company. You could talk to everyone and kind of be like, hey, I have this idea, and everyone was like involved. Versus
Mhm.
here, it's like, how do you reach the top? How do you tell them I have a new idea and kind of get um feedback and kind of get allowed to do that because you can't just like decide to do something.
Yeah, it's thank you for sharing your perspective. Um, I just want to remind our audience that you can share your questions. We will open up in like maybe 10 minutes our chat and we will read your questions to our panelists. So already think about what kind of questions you want to ask. Use this chance to ask as many questions as you can. So yes, I want to ask next question to Roma. How would you compare the opportunities and challenges of being an employee compared to an entrepreneur?
Yeah, very different, right? As an employee, I feel like you're safe under the guidance and under the I want to say like your managers and your the hierarchy like overseeing your work. So you're kind of sheltered. Um, but, as an entrepreneur, you have a little bit more of a creative agency, even though like you are in a scientific field. I feel like there's a lot of room to like spread, to grow. But as an employee, you're confined to your role. I would say both have pros and cons. It was really nice for me as an employee to not make any expensive decisions, whereas now it's really scary to do that because I have no one to look to. It's me. But again, like I said, I'm really enjoying being creative, being more efficient, getting a lot of exposure to other founders and other professionals that I probably, couldn't have gotten the exposure to when I was an employee. But I would say both experiences grow as you grow in your roles and yeah, I found fulfillment in both these roles. I'm still finding in fulfillment as an entrepreneur.
Thank you, Roma, for sharing your experience. I want to ask one more question to all of you. How do you think the industry can evolve to support more women-led, women-focused biotech ventures?
I guess I can get started on that. It's something that I deeply think about on a daily basis. Um, I'm sure most of you are familiar with the statistic of 2% or less than 2% of VC funding goes to women-led companies, women founders. So there is this huge gap that we need to fill, so to speak.
Mhm.
But I've also noticed personally there is a level of bias that that investors have per se, or these venture capital like firms have, which not to say it's not progressing. I think it's getting better, but I in fact like I can tell you with my own experience. Uh, Whenever I would talk to an investor, I would ask them like, how many female founded companies have you invested in? There would The answer would be, obviously disappointing. But I have seen firsthand that there is that push into investing in women-led companies because they have been historically, underserved. So we are kind of like the underdog right now, and we're actually getting a lot of traction because of that narrative. But there is so much that we need to do to move the needle forward. And it is really frustrating at times. Don't get me wrong. I think the situation is dire. We need to really work towards it. We need people to be like to trust women founders. I actually read somewhere that and this is like again a data-driven point that I wanted to bring out, which is investors tend to ask female founders risk risk associated questions about their companies versus to men, they ask a lot of opportunity associated questions. So when you come to a woman founder with hard-hitting questions in the intro call, you are coming with a lot of bias. And so we have so many of these societal structural norms that we need to break down, which is happening. It's slow to come, but it's happening. And I think those are some real challenges that we're finding. But again, innovation is what is driving investment, and I think if there are any aspiring entrepreneurs out here, I would definitely, encourage you to keep going. And the tide is turning, and definitely seeing a lot more founders being given funding.
Thanks, Roma, for your honest answer. Does anyone want to add on?
I'll just add that I think another huge component of the reason that there isn't a lot of funding and investment for kind of women's health and female-led startups is there aren't a lot of female VCs. There aren't a lot of female investors. So if you have investors on the other side who are experiencing the symptoms, the problems, they understand the unmet need that founders and companies are answering. It's a no-brainer, right? But these male investors they're like, PMS, what is that? It's not a big deal. They just don't understand. So I think also just increasing female representation across the board in all kind of aspects of industry is important.
Thank you so much. That's a good point. We have so many questions in the chat now. I think I'm gonna go to read some questions. Before that, Kristel, if you have anything to add on, please feel free.
I would say as well, like mentorship in any form, like women mentoring other women wherever you are in kind of in your life or in your career, just because we learn so much from each other and kind of keep uplifting each other, like keep supporting each other. Like if you see another woman kind of like, it's like a silent, like I know, we know kind of thing.
I think you almost answered this question in the chat. I will read and maybe you can continue that part. What are some tips and tricks you use to maintain your network connections?
Yeah, kind of like keep being honest with people, like keep being kind and friendly. And like with people that you have built a network with, like keep trying to reach out and see how they are. Just like genuinely try to like be nice and remember them as well, not just when you need something from someone. Kind of keep that connection. Like I still keep connections with my PI who I worked with during my undergrad in the lab. Like I message him sometimes and just question how are things, and how are things in the lab, and he asked me about that too. And even now he has students that are kind of graduating and trying to transition into roles in industry. And I also reach out, we have positions or there's available things. And he's like, can you talk to these students if you have some time? And I'm usually open to that. So it's kind of this give and take as well. Yeah, just literally like keep trying to maintain those connections in an honest and kind way.
That's absolutely true. And we have so many good advices. I hope you are taking notes because it's really helpful. We will also share the video of our meeting today. So also check that out. Next question is for Roma. Hi, Roma from Bhakti. As someone who is very interested in women's health and aspires to work in the space, what are some essential skills?
I mean, I won't say you need any special skills to be in women's health. I think an open mind is something that I have always had when it came to trying to solve a problem. And women's health is such a huge problem, such a big gap that we need to close. Curiosity is something that I think is number one in the space because there's so much that we can solve for. Um, and what else? Like I'm a scientist. I think I have kept up with the latest, um, technological progress, interventions. That's something that you could try to do. Um, I'm also a big proponent of, following women who have, really popular voices like on LinkedIn or on like other social platforms. Uh, Learning about other perspectives has been really interesting and again, mind-opening. Um, but yeah, overall, for something that is so nuanced, having that critical thinking with open-mindedness is something that I would recommend. And of course, empathy. There's so much shame around a lot of different concerns in women's health. So empathizing with women who go through these struggles, empathizing with of course, like scientifically speaking, the problems that are being faced, I think is something that could be another unique element that you could add to your skill set.
Thanks for answering the question. We have so many questions. I'm just trying to pick some of them. I have one question from Cassandra. What have you found to be successful in helping you promote yourself to people other than your manager? For example, your manager's manager, that you feel that feels genuine, doesn't read as egoistical and consistent. What do you think?
I can go ahead. I've been in this position, and I feel like uh, I guess being genuine shows up when you show up being, as a genuine person. Um, I really think if you were to have a chat with your manager's manager, I think having that foundation with your manager first might really help. Um, and I'm really a big believer of like, having your manager on your side and they will take care of you. But I can also imagine a situation where you need to show up for yourself. Uh, you know, uh, I've always had a really good interactions with my skip managers on like coffee outings or even like some sort of like a one-on-one chat. Is if there's something that you think that they would be interested in listening to, I think a casual coffee that you could plan would be interesting. Uh, but I would say like start with your manager, then go to your skip. You might be better off doing that.
Thank you. Anyone wants to add anything on?
Yeah, I can also add to that. For sure, what Roma said is so true. I think you have to be genuine. You can't just like pretend to be genuine and try to like get something from it. Like actually be interested in things. But I understand like when you're trying to like push to advocate for yourself or like be visible again. Going back to that. Um, yeah, I think it's also kind of this culture of us being kind of afraid to talk to people who are like higher up than our manager, and going up that line. Especially again, as women, I feel like we feel like, oh, that's kind of scary to go and talk to somebody who's like so high up there. Like, why would they care about me?
Mhm.
But you kind of have to remind yourself, and I remind myself this all the time. I'm like, they're just another human. Like they are very, they might be very intelligent. They might be doing great, amazing things, but they're just a human. And if you come to them honestly and say, hey, like Roma said, like maybe a coffee chat, like, can we discuss what I'm working on? I would love to hear your advice and kind of make that connection. And that way they kind of know what you're doing as well, which is hard to sometimes be seen. But yeah, just don't be afraid. Just kind of go and like ask them. They'll usually say yes.
Thank you, Kristel. I think this question could be good for Kat. Uh, what experiences make candidates stand out for industry roles in biotech? What do you think?
A great question.
Mhm.
I would say teamwork, collaboration, being able to point to specific examples of that where you have either had to work cross-functionally, across department, collaborate with another lab, kind of figure something out with a colleague that neither of you knew how to do, and kind of combined minds together, you were able to find a path. Collaboration is so absolutely critical. I mean everywhere, but especially in industry, and I think it's underappreciated how much value that can bring to kind of your candidacy when you're interviewing. And I'm sure, like all of you, if you have experience working in lab, I'm sure you can, if you kind of prepare some little vignettes, you have specific examples, but it's hard to recall them in the moment when you're in an interview. So just preparing a few of those kind of different types of examples that you can just kind of say this and this and this and this.
Thank you so much. I see one interesting question in the chat. As a biotechnology management and entrepreneurship student, I have hands-on experience in lab and research, but I'm also very interested in exploring the business side. What early experiences or signals helped you determine where you could create the most impact, and how would you recommend exploring both before choosing a path? It's like uh, a little complex, but
I can answer to this. I've done this at Helena. I started off as a scientist, and towards the end of my tenure at Helena, I moved into strategic partnerships. Um, I did want to, I mean, this was an intentional decision for me to move from science to business. And I positioned it to my managers, my skip managers, the CEO um, as a department, or as a little sort of like inway into bridging two departments. So I'm creating an opportunity for myself with
Mhm.
the understanding that I want to learn X, Y, and Z. So from science, or from being a scientist, I moved into scientific communications, which is kind of that bridge between science and, say, marketing, for example. Um, I learned so much in that role. In 6 months, I transitioned into a purely business related role, but again, with that science in the background, which is strategic partnerships. So I think, uh, and this is something that I would definitely encourage everyone here to pursue. If you have the science, and if you can learn um, uh, any business skills, I think that is such a powerful combination. I mean, you are essentially doing what two departments could do, right? So I would say start off by bridging whatever qualifications you have with what you want to learn. Um, and then, project management is a really good way to enter as well. It's also, you don't need a certain degree to be a project manager, right? So a really good way to do that. Scientific communication is another way to do that. And that's a good way for you to learn if this is something that you want to continue to do, or just step back and continue with the science field.
Thank you so much, Roma. I really like this question from Cassandra, though it's I think the third question. What has helped you prepare most for interviews? And if you've been on the side of interviewing, what have you noticed makes a candidate stand out? If you have this experience.
I'm going to let someone else take this. I can jump in and add a couple more points to that.
Sure.
Yeah, I can take it. I've been on both sides as well. Kat, were you gonna say something?
No, go ahead, go ahead.
I think on both sides, know what's on your resume or CV really well. I think people like kind of forget about that. They like look at the one thing they've done that maybe aligns with the role most, and they kind of forget about the other stuff that's on their resume or CV, and they might have done it a couple of years ago, and then someone will ask them, and then you're not prepared. So if you have to kind of like study your stuff again, like go back and be like, okay, what did I do? What was this research that I did or whatever it was? And make sure you know how to answer it because people might ask you and then you might look like you maybe didn't know what you did or might seem like unknowledgeable about something that you're putting on a piece of paper. So really know what you did. And that is true for both like me preparing to interview and also interviewing people. Like, you can tell. And then it seems like maybe they actually didn't know or didn't do the thing that is written there. So that's a main thing I would say.
I would
Thank
maybe piggyback off of that and say know who you're interviewing with, both like the company and the people you're speaking to, the individuals that you're speaking to, and like tailor your kind of elevator pitch or whatever accordingly, right? You might well be interviewing with someone who's like a super domain expert in the same domain that you're an expert in which case, of course, go for it, knock yourself out. But very often you'll be interviewing with people who are also scientists, but not in this particular area of expertise, and you can lose them very easily if you just go down a rabbit hole on something super niche and specific. So learning to kind of tailor the level of detail you're going through your different experiences in your resume, having kind of, toggle like high level, deep dive for every single one and doing a bit of research ahead of time, making sure you tie your experiences very specifically to how is that relevant to the job that you're actually applying for. That's super important because it's easy to spend the first half of an interview just going on a monologue that the other person's just like falling asleep in the middle of. So making it really like snappy, relevant, to the point that they care about.
I also think that there is something to be said about core values. I think companies really care about, like, you might have all the skills, the scientific skills, technical skills that they are looking for in that role. But I would also urge you to look up the company that you're interviewing for, look up their website. Most likely they will have some core values that they really care about. And I would say for tactical purposes, try to remember or think of an experience you've had related to exercising these core values. This could be empathy, this could be teamwork, this could be cross collaboration.
you.
One time you took one for the team, things like that. I think more often than not, you will find that there will be, for example, 5 people that who could do the who could have the same technical skills as you, but maybe it is the core values that would really put you in the spotlight for them.
Thank you for the addition, Roma. Yes, I think those all your advices are really helpful because we're almost close to our 7 p.m. One quick question, and we'll say we will just thank you for being with us. How do you find mentors and maintain a connection with them? Really quick answers. Anyone wants to
I
share?
don't know that there's like any cheat
Mhm.
sheet for it. It's you just have to kind of, I think it's we've touched on it before, like be genuine, seek out, be genuine, be honest, try and, just go for it. Just when you see someone that you admire, you can tell them that. Be like, wow, I really admire your career path. I'd love to learn from you. Like, come to them with questions. People are very willing to give their time and share the benefit of their experience if you just ask them. So, yeah, I don't know that there's much more. I certainly don't have like secret tricks up my sleeve other than that.
Yeah, just put yourself out of your box, out of your comfort zone, right? And just be there and find your mentors and just try to keep connected. Well, thank you very much one more time. Well, we had really great insights and advices from our wonderful panelists. I wish everyone to really have use this information and make the most out of it. Thank you one more time. We have also clubs here. Yes, and thank you one more time for our audience to be here and be so active, being so active and asking so many questions. And I want to say I'm sorry for not being to answer all the questions. But we have what we have. We're running out of time. So I wish you to have a great evening, continuation of the evening, and see you next time. Thank you one more time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.